Of course, as we begin Mad Dog Unleashed on a busy day, Colin Schmeling today and Eddie Erickson today. We take you through your afternoon as we jump on board with all the sports here at 888 Mad Dog 6 on the great SiriusXM 82. Nice to have you with us. Ira later, we'll have some fun with him, as you know. We'll do a couple of little things as we move it along, as we get you ready for the holiday and get you set for the weekend in football and big games, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Next week, we sort of turn our attention to all the college. I believe we have Gary Danielson one day next week to sum up the Final Four, because we need to get a report out of Gary. We're on for 2 days. He's got a Sun Bowl one of the days, so we'll see if we get that done for you and get you wrapped up for Alabama against Clemson. Alabama's a 3-point favorite, and Clemson, of course, not Clemson, and Oklahoma and Georgia. Right now, Georgia is a 1.5. Anyway, we'll move on to that on another day. Maybe later on, we'll get you involved there. And the football, of course, we will be in and out of it here on this Wednesday afternoon. Let's start today with the baseball. You got 2 or 3 things going on. First thing, the big one is the Giants made a trade. They got Evan Longoria from the Rays in a trade for Denard Span, a couple of minor leaguers, one of them a pitcher. A little cash consideration thrown back San Francisco's way from Tampa. This is a salary dump for the Rays. More on them in a sec. From a Giant perspective, this solidifies their infield. They needed a third baseman. We all know that. They needed another infielder. They don't want to gamble with Sandoval. They needed a guy that they can put at third base and rely upon. He's making $82 million now, the remainder of his contract. So I'm not too sure if 2 years from now if a Giant fan's going to like this. But as far as next year is concerned, the Giants, this is a little step as far as getting back to respectability in the NL West. You throw in Longoria and you put him with Crawford at short, Panic at second, and Belt at first, Posey behind the plate. That's a pretty good defensive and offensive team in that scenario. Yes, Belt never plays, concussed constantly. He's underachieved, big contract, but Panic is a useful player, especially in a big game. Crawford's very underrated. We all know about that. We know, Posey's Posey, and if he's got some help around him in that lineup, he'll even be more effective. And Longoria, who, listen, he has not gotten better with age, he's gotten worse. Last year, at 20-something homers and about 85 RBIs. I mean, the early part of his career, he was very good. He's not a great player. He's a good player. He's a very good defensive player. He's okay offensively. I think the Giants are banking on the idea that if he gets out the pack or AT&T, 41,000 a night, gets out of the doldrums of the trap, he gets put into a winning scenario. Last year, notwithstanding, with players who have won championships, Bumgarner, for instance, and Cueto and Posey and Pence, and the sort of players the Giants and Bochy and that kind of group, that maybe there'd be a little cocoon action and he'll get a little fountain of youth going and he'll play a little better, especially offensively, than he has played in the past. Do I love it from a long-term perspective? Not necessarily. And the Giants have a bunch of older players right now, and we all know how baseball goes. The older you get, the worse you're off. And Posey's Posey's a catcher, and he's played a lot of games, and they're all around 30 or above. This is not a young team, and they don't have a good farm system, so they have won their 3 championships. You can never take that away from them, but this is a team that may have seen its better days and really might be making one last gasp at respectability in the NL West with this move here by Longoria. But the Giants get 41,000 a night. They have a huge payroll. They don't seem to be that concerned about luxury taxes. If they get over that threshold this year, was it 197? It's the 4th consecutive year, and the tax rate will go way up. So I don't think the Giants want to do that. That's why there was some cash considerations probably going back the other way. Span was making $9 million in 2018, the last year of his contract. And Longoria is making about $13-14 million. So, but then down the road, Longoria's contract spikes some, and obviously Span, it's a 1-year deal. Tough spot for him to end up in Tampa. They got Kiermaier in center field anyways. So who knows what's going to happen to him down the road? Probably find some other team. They release him. Who knows? We'll get to Tampa in a minute. From a Giant perspective, I understand what they're trying to do. They hate the Dodgers. They've won 5 straight divisions. They came within an inch of winning a World Championship. They got young players all over the place, something the Giants do not have because of a bad farm system. That farm system, which for a long time produced, Crawford, Panic, Lincecum, Kane, Bumgarner, Posey, Belt, long time that farm system produced. But that farm system, those were with high number one picks. Remember, Posey was a high pick and everything else. Lincecum, Kane, these are all very high picks, first rounders that panned out for them. Giants have not had a lot of success in that area for a long, long time. They got a bad farm system, and it's not going to get any better right now either. But again, I can't argue too much for next year. I can't argue too much with the move. The Giants, with an older manager who's going to the Hall of Fame, and with Posey sitting there and Bumgarner sitting there, are not going to rebuild. That's what the Giants are not going to do, so here comes Longoria. Now, from a Tampa perspective, again, does this mean that Tampa now is going to completely unload these players? The Chris Archers of the world, who was signed to 2022, whatever it might be, with a great favorable team contract? I can't answer that. But I think this tells you, and I think that's been a big theme of the winter, which we have not necessarily delved into. I have some, but we haven't done it too much, is the future of baseball in these two cities. And Florida right now, in this state, has been a complete mess. They went to Florida partly because of collusion to make their money back. And baseball in Tampa, baseball in Miami, to a certain degree, baseball in Denver, and baseball in Phoenix. You know, Denver's baseball is a pinball machine. Phoenix is Phoenix, but not as badly there. But in these two locations, this is a mess. People who live in Florida do not want to go watch Tampa Bay Ray games. People who live in Florida have no interest in watching Marlin games unless they're playing the Red Sox or the Yankees, both franchises. Baseball in this state has been a complete mess. The Marlins have obviously, they brought in new ownership. This is probably what they have to do to get themselves back together again. But the Marlins are never going to be a sustainable franchise. Somehow in their short history, they've won 2 championships, both times beating the Giants, by the way, 03 and 97. But, you know, long term, they cannot be successful in that spot. The stadium's a good stadium. It's in a lousy location, nowhere near their fan base. It's funny. They have a good stadium with, you know, what has been very shaky front office and leadership from the owner on down, and they got a good stadium, while Tampa does not have a facility, but they got good ownership and they got a good front office. So it's weird. It's almost like one franchise got the lousy ownership and a great ballpark, so they haven't been able to put both together, and Tampa's the other is shoes on the other foot. So I think that's a problem, but I don't even think if you put a Taj Mahal, you know, in downtown Tampa on the river there, I don't think that baseball would be successful. And you could put this ballpark in Miami, you could put it right in the middle of Fort Lauderdale, which is where they should have put it, or Boca, somewhere up there in Broward. Is it Broward County or Dade County? Broward, right? I get it mixed up, the counties. The county up there, West Palm, Boynton Beach, Boca, Fort Lauderdale, up in that area, you could have the greatest ballpark in the world. I still don't think they would draw on an everyday basis. So it's a very tricky spot. Derek Jeter had a little fan fest last night with 200 season ticket holders. You know, he tried to explain to the fan base what he's... Jeter could not have loved that, answering phone calls and hands from Bob from Boynton Beach. Derek, hi, let's talk. I mean, that's the last thing that Derek would want to have to deal with. But with all the angst going on down there, I guess he had no choice. Somebody's got to be the team spokesman. It's not going to be Bruce Sherman, the money man behind the Marlins. Jeter's got $50 million in it, but obviously Sherman's got the majority of the cash. He's not going to do the talking. Jeter's going to do the talking. And I understand the Marlins, you cannot argue on the surface of what they're trying to do. You know, they won 75, 78 games last year, and the kid almost won the MVP. They had a bunch of young players. Nobody showed up at the ballpark. They are not going to win in this location for a long period of time. So I understand that the Marlins are a mess. But I don't know, even if they were run superbly, with the ballpark in the right place, with a minor league system, bar none, I still don't know if the Marlins would ever be successful long term. And I don't think Tampa can be either, and they have good ownership. I think both franchises are a complete mess. And baseball, which I know they're preoccupied right now with pace of play and all that nonsense, which is all fair. I get it. Catchers, mound appearances by catchers and relievers and to speed up the game. I get all that. But baseball right now, and as I've said to you for a couple days now, they got major issues in 3 locations. Oakland, no stadium. Who knows what the story is there? Maybe there'll still be some progress down the road field at some location, but that's a dump. A professional sports team should not be playing in a stadium like that in 2017. This is not the 1950s. This is 2017. If you want the team, you're going to have to help the ownership build the stadium. That's all there is to it. If you don't want the team, get out. And, I'm normally for no municipality helping pay for a stadium, but something has to be done in Oakland because they don't have the money to fit that, $1 billion stadium bill, and something's going to have to give there. So, but that's a mess. And the Miami Tampa thing is a garbage dump. And baseball's got major issues. They got a lot of markets in the sport that just don't care right now about baseball because the teams can't compete. Cincinnati, Baltimore, we're going to get to in a second, Miami, Tampa, Oakland, there's a lot of San Diego, there's a lot of markets, right? Pittsburgh, there's a lot of markets right now that have major issues, and I'd be worried about that. It's a little bit of a have-not situation going on right now in Major League Baseball. So that's the second thing that I needed to discuss today, the state of baseball in that state. And the third thing is Zach Britton, who today, Ken Rosenthal had it, today, tore his Achilles. He did it over the week. He did it on Monday night, working out. Who knows what he was doing? Hopefully it wasn't basketball, but he was working out on Monday night. Tore his Achilles. He's going to be out, 4 to 6 months. That's a tricky injury. And the Orioles, who maybe should have traded him last July to Houston if they had an opportunity to. He's a free agent following the 2018 season. The Orioles can't get 50 cents on the dollar right now. They can't trade him. They're going to have to sit tight, let him get healthy again, see what happens in the middle of July. But the Orioles right now, a prideful franchise that's won some championships with an owner who's competitive and hates the Yankees. The Orioles right now in a beautiful ballpark in a baseball city. The Orioles right now got major issues. They got the Yankees and the Red Sox ahead of them for the long term. The Red Sox are going nowhere. The Yankees are going nowhere. Both franchises have, $200 million payrolls and beyond. Both have lots of young players. They play in iconic baseball cities. Great parks. The Yankee Stadium is not a great park, but it's Yankee Stadium. Fenway is Fenway. And they're not going anywhere. They're going to renew that rivalry, and away we go. And the Orioles are stuck like Tampa. Obviously, same thing goes for, in a lot of ways, for Toronto. Toronto's a little different because they got the whole country behind them, but Baltimore right now doesn't know which end is up. What should they do? They trade Machado, they keep Machado, they trade Britton, they don't trade Britton. What do they do with Adam Jones? How about Brad Brock? I mean, they have major issues, major decisions to make. They got a manager who wants to win today in Buck Showalter. They got a GM who's competitive in Dan Duquette. They got an owner who doesn't want to, back down to anybody. One day they want to trade Machado, the next day they don't want to trade Machado. But here's the issue. They are not winning this American League East in 2018, whatever they do. And 9 times out of 10 with Houston, the Angels are better. Obviously, Minnesota and Cleveland, they're not making the playoffs either. So, and you can't build your team to play one playoff game and a wild card playing game. So the Orioles right now are a complete mess. I don't know what the answer is. I guess the answer is to trade Machado when you can get a chance to trade him. I know a lot of people are not going to give you a lot for him because they're going to say, why trade for him now when I can just buy him in a year? Maybe the White Sox think that they can, get him, put him at shortstop, he'll fall in love with playing on the south side, and they can give the Orioles some prospects. If the White Sox come calling again, if I'm Dan Duquette, I answer the phone, and I probably have to make the trade. It's unfortunate. That's the way it is. The Orioles are not going to pay this guy $300 million to play shortstop or third base. So, baseball is the lead today on a Wednesday. We'll come back and do some other things with your calls. 9 lines. So here we go now. We'll continue on this theme right after this.